Hey, Editor MQ here. A couple of you might have noticed I actually have published this video already, and I published it with some incorrect information, and I thought it was really important that I clarified this. There's actually been a change to the way that summons use granted movement, essentially, in Frosthaven. So in Gloomhaven, the rule was unless it specifically said on the card that you get to control a summon when granting them an action, they would just do things to do with monster focus. Now, this is something that has obviously changed, and I wasn't aware of the change entirely. However, a lot of you in the comments mentioned it to me and people in the Discord, so I really appreciate people pointing this out, because I think that this rule is a big change and actually makes this character much more powerful than I initially envisioned. I thought it was powerful already, but now that you can basically control everything using your move ally abilities and move your summons around very, very easily, then now you should have no problem setting up a lot of these different formations, or at least a lot less of an issue. So I really thought it was important to kind of clarify that, and I wanted to preload this video a little bit with this information, because the back end information of this video, in some places I will not mention this, but actually I think I can't understate enough how powerful some of these abilities are. So I wanted to set the record straight and come on and make sure the information is right, because the worst thing I want to do is to have a video up with some poor information for you guys, and I really want you to have as much information as possible going into Frosthaven. The cards that this really affects, I'll put a list of the cards up here as well while we do this, but level 1 combined effort, level 1 regroup, level 2 pinning charge, level 4 boldening blow, and level 8 taunting howl. All of these cards have bottom abilities on them that allow you to grant allies movement, and these are going to be super important for setting up your formations, because now you can actually control that movement of those summons and make sure that they get to the places that you wanted to do, which is a change. That is definitely changed from original Gloomhaven. I feel like in general the move 3s that you can get are going to be super powerful. So the ones that actually move 3 are probably going to be the difference here between you being able to get them to the other side of an enemy, you know, sneak around the back for the pincer movement style formations. Those are going to be really key. And I think, although most of the time I do recommend the card anyway, and I think that the top attacks are pretty good, I think it is really worth me saying here at the front of the video and clearing that up, that this change of the rule is quite important. But now, essentially, this character is pretty much insane, I think, and paired with the Bone Shaper, it's going to be a real power duo, I think, going forward into Frosthaven. So this character plus the Bone Shaper is just going to be nuts. So yeah, definitely a very powerful character, and one that I think a lot of people are going to like. Okay, future MQ out, back to past MQ. You guys know the drill by now. Please consider liking the video and subscribing if you do enjoy the content. I'm going to be doing a Frosthaven first impressions look and full look at the final cards and perks for all of the characters. I already have Geminate and Deathwalker done, so you can check them out on the channel down below. And also I will be doing all of the other ones in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned for those. I also stream regularly on Twitch at twitch.tv/mandatoryquest every Monday, Wednesday and Sunday. So come hang out, maybe play some Gloomhaven Digital with me live on Sundays when we do Community Save Sunday, or just ask any questions, have a good chat about the Frosthaven classes. There's lots to discuss at the moment. It's a very exciting time to be a Gloomhaven or Frosthaven fan. So yeah, come and hang out and have some fun there. Okay, I won't keep you any longer. Let's jump into the Human Banner Spear. So the Banner Spear, starting character in Frosthaven, is a fairly tanky frontline type character whose unique mechanic is formations, which require your allies to be basically in kind of AoEs. So it's using the same AoE mechanic for different attacks and abilities like we know of before from Gloomhaven and we've seen in loads of characters. However, now we have this blue hex, which depicts where an ally must be in order for us to perform these attacks or these abilities. So you can still orientate it in different ways. However, this must always be the kind of correct orientation, if you like. So you can mirror it, you can flip it. However, you must still have an ally in these blue hexes, but apart from that, it remains pretty much exactly the same. So your position is the grey hex, and the red hexes depict the enemies that you can attack, or you can attack any number of enemies that are in those red hexes. So quite a simple mechanic here, but it is interesting, and it does build on an existing mechanic that players are probably already familiar with if you've come from Gloomhaven. Another unique thing that the Banner Spear gets is banner summons. So these are summons that she can put down that give buffs to your party from where they are. These can also work for the purposes of being your allies, and summons do count as allies in the game, so this can help you set up your formations as well. But also these are quite nice things to put in the middles of rooms or behind the front lines to be able to buff you and all of your allies up as you perform your actions. And these, although don't have any movement, can be moved through other effects, and the Banner Spear can also move these. So those are the sort of the two unique mechanics, if you like. You're going to have these banner summons, and you're going to have these formations that you're trying to do. You also have a repeatable summon, which is the reinforcement summon, which is quite nice. So this is one that can either do a little bit of tanking for you, so you can just plonk it down and it could maybe eat an attack, which would be quite nice. Also, you can just use it to obviously set up your formations. And because it's a non-burn summon, it will go to your discard when it dies, or if you choose to discard it, and then it will go back into your hand for you to play again. And this is another unique thing from Frosthaven, having replayable summons. That wasn't a thing in base Gloomhaven, in normal Gloomhaven, so it's good to see here, and the Banner Spear can definitely use these. Now, in terms of a good party composition for her, I think really she could work in any real party. The inclusion of the reinforcement summon and the banner summons mean that she should be able to create these formations when needed, or without too much help needed from other characters. But of course, if you are playing with 4 players and you have summons as well, maybe someone's playing the Bone Shaper, you're going to have lots more opportunity maybe to set up these formations in an easier way, if you like. Although I don't think that she is unplayable with 2 players or with 3 players, because she's definitely self-sufficient. I do think that generally characters who buff other characters and also care about positioning of other characters are always going to be generally better in larger parties. She starts with 10 cards and 10 health. 10 cards is neither big nor small. That's kind of right in the medium area there. The 10 health is the most we see from a starting character kind of health from characters so far. However, that's not to say there might be unlockable characters in Frosthaven that have more, but 10 health is high, and that is good. So this character would be considered to be a tanky character. So you can see from the chart that melee, support, and defense are our top 3 attributes, with defense being our best attribute. It's unclear to me at the moment whether or not they are taking into account the fact that a summon could just take an attack and kind of mitigate some damage as part of the defense statistic. This character, though, does have a lot of shield, so I feel like this does pretty well represent what it is that they can do. I do think they have more ranged abilities than perhaps this gives off initially, and there is definitely some interesting ranged attacks that this character gets, so that's worth bearing in mind. But I feel like this is pretty representative, and our elemental affinities is air, which is nice because we can consume and use air on certain abilities, and our complexity is 2. Okay, let's take a look at the cards. First card we have is At All Cost, which is heal 3, target all allies. Very good. But we do have a slight downside here, which is that we're going to suffer 1 damage for each ally whose hit point value increased with the heal ability. The reason this is worded like this is that technically all allies would be targeted, and you can still heal allies even though they may be at full health. So this is obviously to not really hurt you for not doing any physical healing, right? I think this is very good. Obviously, this scales really well with the party that you're playing with. If you're only playing 2-player, then I think that this is probably pretty underwhelming. If it's just you and 1 other mercenary, maybe a summon as well at the same time. And summons generally have quite low health, especially the replayable summons. So actually healing them is not needed or not possible because they only have 1 health anyway, or 2 health. They're basically dead. If you were to take 4 or 5 damage, obviously that's quite bad with this character. So I think that At All Costs might be better in the sort of later levels potentially, rather than at level 1. Because obviously if you were to heal up 3 or 4 allies who all had lost health, then that's 4 damage, and you only start with 10 health. So that's already you down to half health pretty much. And also you might have already taken damage from enemies as well. So the bottom here is Summon Reinforcement, which is 1 health and 2 move. Now this is basically the really big piece, if you like, for this character that I feel like most people are going to use or need to use in order to set up your formations, especially considering that it is a bottom summon action. This is 60 initiative, which is not great, but as we know, most summons do have late initiatives. This is kind of slightly in the middle there, though, so Hopefully we can maybe pair this with an earlier attack, but the idea here is that because it's on the bottom of a card, we can summon this reinforcement in the hex next to us, which immediately gives us that formation bonus and fulfills that ally requirement for us on an attack, and then we can go and attack. The 2 move I think is okay. The fact that we control the movements of this summon though is really what sets this out. With the move 2, that means that we can actually ensure that it's going to go somewhere that we want, or we can hide it, or we can get it to go to an enemy to tank an attack for us when we don't want to take an attack. That just really gives you a lot of flexibility. So as an early game summon that not only helps this character sort of get going, I think it actually does a really good job of just tanking and just doing other useful things, because the fact that you can control the movement is quite unique. That's not something you would normally get. Obviously a complete role player for this character, but actually has a lot of situational other use too. So at all costs, this is like the slam dunk card for me that I think every player is going to play with, regardless of build pretty much. Unless, of course, you have some other way that you have allies that can fill that requirement for you. But even then, I think that this reinforcement is just so good for a non-burn summon, being able to control that movement, put them where you want them, block enemies off. At all costs, a great start to this character, a really solid card, one that we're absolutely taking every time. Next, we have Rallying Cry, which is attack 3 with Disarm on the top. Wow, Disarm, really strong. And we see here our first formation, or our first sort of AoE pattern that we need to try and fulfill. And this is why that movement is so important on this summon. However, as you probably notice here, this is one that we can't actually do a 1-turn setup for, because we would have to summon this reinforcement in a hex adjacent to us. And this actually is a pincer style movement. So this requires us to be either side of an enemy. This is us, this is our ally, and this is the enemy, right? So it's a little bit different. It's not one that we can set up immediately, but this is an amazingly powerful effect. An attack 3 with Disarm. If we can reliably do this, this is just MVP kind of control. And I like the fact now that we're going to get this kind of effect, but this setup could be difficult, and you're going to get rewarded very well for this setup. So Rallying Cry top, amazing. However, trying to do this could be tricky. This is one of the more tricky ones I would imagine to do, just because if, for example, there's lots of enemies in the room, perhaps they set up in front of you, and you don't have jump on your allies, so your ally might get blocked behind enemies or behind traps, things like that, behind obstacles. It's going to be more difficult to do this pincer style movement for sure. 71 initiative is bad for this kind of effect, right? We want to be able to go early to disarm an enemy so they don't do anything. You don't really want to be disarming late in a round, because you don't know what the enemy is going to do next round. They could just do a shield and retaliate. They could just do a heal action. They could do a summon action, right? Yeah, you can stun late, and that means that they won't take a turn next turn. That's generally just good. Generally speaking, that's just good. But disarm is definitely something where you want to play early, see what the flips are, and then try and go and get that enemy. However, with this pattern, I don't think you're going to be able to just pick and choose. Hey, we're going to go over there and disarm the most awkward and the most difficult. This definitely nerfs this ability down to, hey, we have the opportunity to disarm something, let's go and do it, rather than it be, I'm going to play my disarm and I'm going to walk up to the worst enemy in the room that round, that has the worst card flip, and just disarm it. So I felt like this is quite a nice balancing of disarm, because it's difficult to set up, and it also means you can't just pick and choose the exact target every time that you want to disarm to. We do have a summon on the bottom here, which is Summon Banner of Strength, which is 4 health, no move, no attack, no range, but all allies in range 2 add +1 attack to one of their attacks each turn. This is a 2 XP summon, and it goes out and it's a burn, so it would be a loss once it dies. Now this is obviously super strong, and I think it balances the 2 halves of the card. You've got a very good top here that you kind of want to play whenever you can. We've also got this really nice buff potentially on this Banner of Strength at the bottom. The fact that you can only add it once to each of your attacks is I guess kind of like a significant kind of nerf in that sense. Like it's not completely broken. If it was +1 to all of our attacks, that would be crazy good. 4 health means that it might be able to withstand an attack or two. And this character is going to have the ability to move summons as well. So we can move these summons around. There's a chance that we can get the Banner of Strength to move with us into another room, or maybe to bridge 2 rooms. I don't think that Banner of Strength is a turn 1 style summon where you want to play it very early, because as I said, the top of this is so strong. However, this is going to be a great way to maybe finish off some troublesome enemies in a room, and fight bosses and elites and stuff like that. And also it's just a really good alternative option to for people who maybe can't get this formation going for whatever reason. Maybe the scenario just doesn't suit it, maybe you're just struggling to do it, and you've actually got a really good summon on the bottom here that's just going to help your team out anyway, that you can plonk down. So Rallying Cry, a really great card, definitely an auto include, I think, for most players. So next up we have Unbreakable Walls. This is attack 3 with push 1, and you can see that it is literally a wall pattern for the AoE. Now this is the very, very easy pattern for us to achieve. We can obviously summon right next to us, and then we can immediately do this. However, with all of these enemies here like this, it might be a little bit tricky. If we were to go late, and this is 83 initiative, I do think initiative is going to play a really big part in this character being successful or not. So going to have to look at some options for that, because we haven't had a good initiative yet. And also, if we wanted to summon that 60 initiative potentially into this, we may not be able to get this because perhaps this enemy has walked to here, or perhaps this enemy has walked to here. Actually getting all 3 targets with this, I think, is quite difficult. However, it's probably pretty reasonable to try and get 2. So I like this, an attack 3 with push 1, maybe push them into a trap, push them away from you, be able to separate yourselves from them a little bit, I think is nice. You're always pretty happy to see push, because it's just going to give you a little bit of versatility on what you can do. So the bottom here is shield 1, and all of our ranged attacks have -1 range, but this is 2 XP. This is a permanent effect, and this is a burn. Okay, so historically in Gloomhaven, these have always been very good. You can't enhance this one, unlike another unlockable character in Gloomhaven that you could actually enhance this to make this 2, but this has always been a very powerful effect. Very, very powerful effect. And in terms of our ranged attacks having -1 range, I don't really foresee this character being a big ranged character, or at least it wasn't by going on the charts, so it's not a huge drawback. Certainly not as much of a drawback as what we had on the unlockable Gloomhaven class, I would say. This is very strong. So you've got a good attack here on the top that I think may be a bit tricky to set up, and the initiative certainly doesn't help. But you've got a very, very good tanking ability on the bottom here, and one that as soon as you see this, you know that your role is going to be frontline, taking hits. I think it's worthwhile for the burn. Unbreakable Wall, great. This is obviously going to be something that if you plan on going tanking with this character, this is an absolute auto include at the bottom of this for sure. Next we have Javelin, which is attack 3 at range 3. So here is a ranged attack, and create air. So if we were to use Unbreakable Wall, this would only be range 2, which is a significant downside, I would say. The difference between range 2 and range 3 is pretty big for an average size room on a tile, I would say. You can pretty much position yourself nicely with range 3, but range 2 does make things a little bit awkward. Create air as well. We don't know what's going to consume it yet, but being able to create an element is always kind of good. And this could just feed another character. I'm thinking of the Geminate, which I've just reviewed. This could feed someone like the Geminate an element that they could use if this character doesn't use them too much. 21 initiative, that's our lowest initiative so far, which we like to see. I think that's going to be super important. And the bottom is move 1 and pull 2 at range 3. Now that is nice. I think we're going to want some pull with this character, because we're going to want to try and set up these formations in good ways. Being able to control the movement and the positioning of enemies is going to be really important. So this character is definitely going to benefit from push and pull for sure. Because this isn't a attack, this doesn't actually count for the purposes of this. It's just an ability, not an attack. So you don't lose the range here. So that's important to say. You're really happy at level 1 to just play an attack 3, range 3. That is basically the baseline of an attack at level 1 for a ranged attack in Gloomhaven, and the fact that it creates an element, a cherry on top if you like. And I think the bottom is a very usable card for setting up your formations, and 21 initiative is great too. So yeah, Javelin I think is going to be an auto-include card for everybody. Next up we have Deflecting Maneuver, which is attack 2, consume air, so there's that air consume, to get +1 attack and advantage. And then all attacks targeting you this round gain disadvantage. That's on 15 initiative too. Wow, that's pretty decent. An attack 3 with advantage at level 1, and you get a little additional benefit there with the disadvantage on attacks for you. I think that's really quite good. Definitely playable. With advantage at level 1, obviously, and it's not going to be as good as advantage will be at higher levels. So when your attack modifier deck is normal, this is maybe going to give you an additional point of damage. You're happy to have it, but it's not as broken as perhaps it could be at later levels where advantage and you have a very finely tuned deck. It's going to be interesting though how advantage ends up sort of shaking up in Frosthaven, because obviously we have lots of perks now that aren't specifically about the attack modifier deck. We have perks that are just buffs and different bonuses to our characters in different ways, which I think is really interesting, but does definitely devalue advantage as an ability, because characters are not going to be going for just improving their attack modifier deck right out of the gate every time. Definitely strong and a good use of that element that we just generated, so it leads very nicely into that. The bottom is shield 2. This shield only applies to ranged attacks. Interesting. So this is quite unique. Shield 2, but only against ranged attacks. This is like pretty good, I think. In certain scenarios, this is going to be a lifesaver against archers and some like shamans and things like that, living spirits. This would have to be a burn if it was to maybe just give you shield 2 for the whole round, or it would require like an element generation or something. It would require some hoops to jump through, I think, or some significant downside if it was shield 2 everything. So I kind of like it. The top is a very good attack, I think, and gives you that disadvantage that enemies get against you too, which is like a little bit of tanking as well. I actually quite like it. And this pairs really nicely with the disarm, actually, because you could disarm a melee enemy that's obviously right in front of you and is trying to get you, and then you can follow up with this to be able to shield up against those ranged enemies that you can't disarm that are behind you, and you can do it all on 15 initiative. Yeah, I like it. I think the Deflecting Maneuver, I think, is a very solid card. Next, we have Tip of the Spear, which is attack 3, pierce 3. Now that's interesting. That's good. And we have this kind of this nice pattern here where the summon is behind us and we're in front, or the ally, sorry, is behind us and we're in front, and it's the 2 hexes in front of us. So it's kind of a little bit like some of the brute cards from level 1. It's that kind of same kind of pattern, if you like, that kind of spear or javelin style pattern. And I think this is pretty good. Being able to pierce 3 means that this card is actually going to be really relevant for many levels to come. It's going to be useful not just at level 1, but it's going to be useful as you start to level up and then more enemies get shield. But also it's going to be great against stuff like living spirits, if they exist in Frosthaven. It's interesting to see that we've been getting a lot of pierce. Pierce definitely seems to be used more freely in Frosthaven, I've noticed, versus it was in Gloomhaven. Pierce was something that not many characters did get, or it was more difficult to get. So generally speaking, it used to be kind of like pure damage or true damage was our best tool that we could use against enemies that had shield. Pierce was obviously great with like piercing bow and some like big attacks, but it wasn't always the best and most reliable tool. But it feels like Pierce is being used a little bit more in Frosthaven, and that's been kind of confirmed by some of the playtesters that there are more shields in Frosthaven, so Pierce is quite rightly going to be used more. This is a very easy one to set up too with our summon, right? Our summon behind us. We could summon them directly behind us if we wanted to and just immediately do this. Obviously, the initiative's not great for that, but it's something that is possible. So this is one of the easier ones to do, one of the easier formations to make happen. So I like it. I think this is pretty nice. An easy one to do and a really good attack. So this is going to be really, really useful. 67 initiative, as we said, is not great, and it's a bit underwhelming and disappointing. But we've got move 4 on the bottom. Move 4 is always going to be playable. I think I say that every time I see a move 4. Move 4 always going to be playable in Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, whatever haven you're playing. Move 4 is great. So yeah, you're taking this card probably just for the move 4 alone, to be honest. But this is actually a really solid top attack that's useful as well. So yeah, tip of the spear, another good one. Next we have combined effort, which is attack 3 and wound, and another fairly easy pattern to do here. Combined effort, it makes sense. We're just next to each other with the enemy in between. Like, this is a very simple one again. We can just summon here and immediately attack. And actually on 32 initiative, that might be a little bit more doable. This is certainly one that is very, very easy to do. Very, very simple. So I like that. This is going to be one that's going to be a go-to, I think. The feeling that I get so far is this one is going to be your every single round you're going to be playing this and you're going to be able to achieve this, because this is just an incredibly simple pattern to do with an ally, especially if you've got the summons out, or even if you're playing with somebody else in your party, like one of the other fellow mercenaries who is a melee style character. They're also just going to end up in positions like this. So this is going to be super, super simple. So this is a certified guaranteed one, I think, in my opinion. And attack 3 and wound is a good effect. Wound is great. So yeah, nice. 1 XP too. 32 initiative, as we said, is great. That's nice to see. It's not the earliest it could be, but certainly early enough that we could maybe go after certain enemy types with this and they won't get a chance to act before we attack. The bottom is move 2. Grant 2 allies within range to move 2. So this is one of the ways that we can move either our banners or our reinforcement round a little bit more. And the cool thing about this is that because it's on the bottom, this could set up maybe one of our other formations, right? So, you know, maybe we don't want to play this because we've already wounded, and maybe we want to get the disarm going. This could really help us get that disarm and really enable us to be able to do that. And also can just help out your buddies sometimes too. If you've got slower buddies and mercenaries in your party who struggle maybe to get between rooms, then this is another way you could just help them out. So combined effort, this is going to be, I think, one of the most used cards for this character, I think, at early levels for sure. The bottom is just solid movement for you and being able to position allies where you need them or perhaps where they want to go, and that will set up most of your formations, it feels like. And yeah, the top is just an attack you're always happy to do, and a very, very simple one to do as well. So combined effort, yep, really, really solid card. So set for the charge. Whenever an enemy moves or teleports from a hex not adjacent to you, oops, spoiler alert, enemies can teleport. This round, that enemy suffers 2 damage. So whenever an enemy moves or teleports from a hex not adjacent to you to a hex adjacent to you, this round, that enemy suffers 2 damage. So this could be quite good, especially if they are all disarmed. So if an enemy is disarmed, they will naturally move towards you because they will have like a melee focus as per monster focus rules. So as long as that hasn't changed, then potentially you're going to have enemies just moving towards you and taking 2 damage. This is kind of good, and with a little bit of setup, this could be quite nice. Bottom here is move 4, but wow, look at that initiative. 6th initiative, there it is. That's the one we were looking for. 6th initiative with a move 4. It's easy playable. This will probably be played all the way up to level 9, to be honest. 6th initiative with move 4, that pretty much does everything that most characters, especially melee characters, need to do. You need to get towards enemies or away from enemies early. You know, you either need to get close to them early or you need to get away from them early, right? And this does both of those things. And the top, I think, is kind of situationally pretty cool and a nice little effect. So yeah, set for the charge is 100% a card you're going to play at level 1 and maybe even all the way up to level 9, because 6th initiative move 4 is very, very good. Pincer movement is attack 5 with a model, and it is a little pincer is our formation here. So enemy in actually directly in the middle here and us either side. So it's slightly different to the disarm one. The disarm one, we were off center here. So I like this. I think this is, again, one of the harder ones to set up, which is probably why it's a bit bigger an attack. That would explain why we do get the benefit for this. But again, if we can use this and we can set this stuff up, we should hopefully be able to do these. So I like this. The muddle is a nice effect that you're not super over the moon about, but muddle can be quite nice, can save you some damage. So you're definitely not turning your nose up at a muddle. Harder pattern to set up, but the reward is an attack 5. So yeah, I quite like that. The bottom is move 1 and loot 1, and I guess I can't skirt over that initiative. 69, nice. Essentially, the move 1 and the loot 1 is okay. It's not great. It doesn't mean that you could kill something and maybe move towards something, loot something that's left over. Sometimes you're going to want to move one. This is probably on the weaker side in terms of a loot because it's only move one. You can enhance this, which is interesting, but I don't ultimately feel like that would be a great value enhancement here. This is just okay for a bottom. You're going to need loot cards. Loot cards are a necessity in Gloomhaven and in Frosthaven. In Frosthaven, they might even be more of a necessity for gaining supplies for your camp. It's needed, but the top here is really, really strong. So I've yet to see a bad card with this character, it has to be said. So next we have Regroup, which is heal 2, range 2 with regenerate. Now that's pretty nice. Being able to do a little heal and then add the regenerate so that character can keep healing on their turns. That's really nice. I would probably want to do this to myself though. I feel like if we're the tank or if we're going to end up being the main tank, then that's something that we would like to do. But of course, we could throw this on an ally who's maybe got themselves in trouble and needs to run away. There's other options that we have for that. Or of course, chuck it onto one of our banners. If our banner has taken a hit, that could be quite nice. Yeah, Regroup, I think, in terms of heals, I probably value this a little bit higher, I think, than heal 3, range 3. It's going to be very interesting to see how much health you realistically can heal with that effect. And that's going to be something we'll learn through playing. But in theory, if you are a character who stays towards the back and maybe comes up every now and again, maybe ends up taking a little bit of damage, maybe gets hit with the target 2 attack or something like that every now and again, maybe you should be able to heal up to full health with something like this. So I think for those purposes and those reasons alone, I think I would probably like this a bit better than, say, a heal 3, range 3. And also the fact that it could remove poison. So if you got poisoned and then every turn it could just remove the poison for you, as long as obviously you're not taking damage. It's really quite interesting. So yeah, Regroup top. I think it's very solid. 25 initiative as well is great. It means that maybe you could use the top here and put it on an ally before they take their turn. The bottom is grant 2 allies within range 3, move 3. So this is another big way for you to set up formations. This one, however, you do have to start in the right spot. So you would have to be in the right spot, and then you can move your allies around to suit what you need for your top attack. So I like this. I think this is really good. 25 initiative as well, which is great because it pairs well with some of these really really late initiatives on these attacks, right? So this actually gives us some good opportunity to still be able to go kind of early in order to do this. So I really like it. I think this is strong. Again, another good card. This is going to be a difficult character to decide which cards to take because, again, so far, all of them have a really good purpose, I think, and have a really good use for this character. So our first X card is Resolved Courage, which is attack 3 immobilize on all 3 hexes in front of us with an ally behind. Wow, this could be really good. 10 initiative as well. Wow, yeah, we could make the summon, for example, behind us, and then we could maybe immobilize everything. Obviously, that's not really a great use of this because then these enemies will just attack you. I think realistically what you want to do is you want to attack and then you want to move away, right? So that then they're essentially, those enemies hopefully won't be able to attack you if they're melee enemies. This is good. This is really solid. It's going to be interesting to see how easy this is going to be to set up though, and how useful it's going to be. Because of course, getting that summon there might be a bit tricky because you end up having to use your bottom. But let's say we were to use the move 2 and then grant 2 allies range 2. That could be like quite nice. But again, we would have to start our turn in the right place to then do the attack, and then we would move away, and then maybe we could move the ally away. Yeah, I guess the difficulty with this one is that trying to get allies into the right place is going to be tricky. This character is definitely going to need to communicate really clearly with the other mercenaries in your party. You're going to be constantly asking the other people in your party, like, where are you moving to this round? Can you end your turn there? You know, please, could somebody end their turn here? All of those kinds of things. What kind of initiative are you guys going on? The play of your initiative and your positioning is going to be so important in playing this character well. It's not going to be rocket science to play, and it's not going to be the most difficult to get your head around to play. If you fail at doing this for whatever reason, enemy does something unexpected, your ally does something unexpected, then this could break down fairly quickly and could actually be a bit frustrating. You definitely need to be good at doing this and able to do these kinds of things. But the payoff is there, which I like. I like it when the payoff is there. something that's slightly hard to do, but once you do it, you get that payoff. And this immobilize is a great payoff for trying to get this. The bottom is add +1 attack to the next attack ability performed by you or an adjacent ally this round. Wow, that's good. And it's the attack ability as well, so it would actually attack everything. Yeah, this is great. I think you probably want to do it to yourself and with some of your really good formations. I think that's where I'm at for this character. Another great card. I don't really know how I'm going to get this down to 10 cards. I'm really liking the options that's available to this character. I really, really am. And you're going to have certain formations maybe that you feel more comfortable. So maybe you end up taking those. But I really like the fact that you have some situational cards. Like, for example, you don't necessarily really need to take, like, this attack 3, pierce 3 is not always going to be great, right? Sometimes you're going to be against enemies and they don't have any shields. So it's just attack 3. But attack 3 against 2 enemies is still pretty good. And move 4 is still really good. This character's going to have a lot of difficult decisions when it comes to your hand when you go on missions, because you're going to have so many good cards at level 1 to really think about and to plan around. Next, we have Incendiary Throw. This is attack 1 at range 3. If the target suffers damage from this attack, the target and all enemies adjacent to this target gain wound. Wow. Okay. Create fire as well. That makes sense. Throwing a little Molotov cocktail or something in there. Obviously, the thing with this is that it's if the target suffers damage from this attack. So when you're attacking 1, obviously, if you're attacking to shield, then this is not very good. You're already at a disadvantage, right? You're already at a position where you need to draw positives. If you're against a non-shielded enemy, then great, but you could still draw your -1, your -2, or your miss at early levels, which could be bad. You either want to buff it or you want to have advantage to make sure that it actually does some damage. Because just throwing it, I think, literally, it's kind of like you're just tossing this incendiary and just hoping. I don't think is maybe the wisest way to play. So actually, this could be a really good candidate for that buff we've just seen, right? This buff, I think, could take this over, because then what that does is that actually means that if you were to draw any of your -1s, then you still end up doing at least 1 point of damage, which will do this against non-shielded enemies. It's going to be interesting because this card, I think, could potentially be MVP early game, and potentially as you start to level up, this card's going to really fall off very, very quickly. As soon as enemies start getting shield, it's just going to be a nightmare, unless you have some way of buffing it and some way of gaining advantage. You do have, though, which is quite nice, a nice enhancement dot here. So there's some potential to enhance this to something pretty broken. Triangle is the one where you can actually enhance negative effects. So there's some good options here. You know, you might have to sink some resources into this, but obviously if you could wound a lot of enemies in a single attack, that's very, very strong. Very, very strong indeed. So, Incendiary Throw is a spicy one. It's a tasty one for sure. Create fire. Now, we don't consume fire ourselves, but obviously there is some really good synergy with the Germinate character with this. So that's worth mentioning. 22 initiative is also good. So that means that we can possibly do this attack when we want it. The bottom is Summon Torchbearer, which is 5 health, 2 move, 1 attack with wound. And this is a burn summon. How do I feel about this one? I think this one is kind of just okay. I don't think this is a great summon. The wound is obviously pretty nice, and it's going to be nice to have summons out as this character. So whereas before I might evaluate summons more in the vacuum of, is this summon good value? I think if you just looked at the raw stats of this summon, I would say, not really. Mainly because it's a melee, which immediately gives a knock to it. 5 health is better than some, but it's really only 2 to 3 attacks, maybe even less. And the 2 move is pretty bad. But then you have to take this character in this summon in the context of the character. And the character has a lot of ways to move allies around, a lot of ways to position them. So Torchbearer might end up being actually a really usable summon for this character just because of that. And the top of Incendiary Throw, I think, it's got me interested. And I know that if I could reliably do this, I'd be extremely happy. But can you reliably do it? And I think that's an interesting kind of question that this card poses. So I actually like this again, like another good card. So this character has a lot of options. I'll say it again. So our last X card and our last card available to us at level 1 is attack 2 range for create light. Now that's it's not a bad attack necessarily, but it's not a great attack either. You're kind of trading, I guess, the 3 attack for the 4 range, right? The baseline, as we said before, is attack 3, range 3 at level 1 and create an element that's good. So this is a little bit different. It's a little bit different. I guess I would rather have the attack than the range most of the time. However, let's bear in mind that if we are playing the shield build, then this would actually be range 3. So this would be attack 2, range 3, which then is obviously below the power level that we were expecting or hoping for. But it does generate lights, which is an element that we don't care about. Again, though, an element that the Geminate really cares about. So perhaps this character could pair really nicely with the Geminate, actually. Starting to see some really good synergy with that character and this character, especially considering that character as well wants to move up and be a melee attack for half of their turns too. So I feel like there's some really nice play between those two that could happen. 18 initiative, very good. That's what we like to see. Summon Banner of Hope is the bottom. 4 health with no move, no attack, and no range again because it's a banner. And it says at the start of their turns, grant allies within range 3 heal 1 self. I would say you want to play this during the mid part of a scenario. You want to play this when things start to go a little bit wrong, but you've also kind of done your damage and stuff. This one certainly cares a lot more about allies. In order to get value out of this, you really need to be healing a decent amount each round. Now, there are unlockable characters in Gloomhaven that have access to a very similar effect to this. It is different, but similar. And the range is quite big, range 3. That means that if you were to put this down in the middle of a room, chances are most allies will be within range of it on the kind of average size tile. However, you still have to be within range of it, which means that some characters who maybe have really long range, or for example, once you move into the next room, this guy's going to get left behind. So this is one that you want to move with you. I think it's pretty strong though. Is it as good as the attack one? I would say it's probably on sort of par with the attack one. If the attack one wasn't just once, I would think that it would be better, obviously. But the fact that this one is at the start of their turns, grant all allies within range 3, this could be a lot of healing if you've got a big party, and kind of fulfills that support kind of heal role quite nicely. Also, against enemies that just poison you or wound you every single round with their attacks, this is super, super good. Really, really good. Really good as well against Brittle now, because Brittle can be removed through heal. So that's something. So potentially, again, another one that has a really good synergy with the Geminate. The bottom of this has great synergy with the Geminate. The Geminate would love to have that effect at the beginning of each of their turns. Definitely. So yeah, Driving Inspiration, another good card. So there you go. That's all of the cards at level 1. And I have to say that I would struggle to pick 10 out of that. I think they're all very, very good. And you've got a lot of options to be able to choose the ones that you feel more comfortable with, or the ones that you think work best with your party comp. Okay, on to level 2. So level 2, we have Pinning Charge, which is attack 2, range 3. We can consume air to add +1 range and immobilize to the attack, which is pretty nice. Attack 2, range 4 with immobilize. Add +1 attack for each ally adjacent to the target. That's a bit of a weird one. Add +1 attack for each ally adjacent to the target. Not sure how I feel about that one. Feels a little bit counterintuitive to us, a little bit, considering that we're probably the melee character who's in there hitting things, or I think that that's generally what we want to try and do. That's a little bit odd. Obviously, the +1 for each ally means that this scales very well with larger party sizes. So if you're playing only 2-player, even with some summons, I think this is probably less worth it. If you're playing 4-player, then with summons, then this could be an additional maybe 2, maybe even 3. I feel like the cutoff for that +1 is probably going to end up being 2 though, for most average attacks. So let's say you could attack something for 3 or 4 at range 4 with immobilize. Is that good? It is very good. And 17 initiative 2 means that you can do it before the enemy gets a chance to move. I feel like it's a bit weird. It's kind of like a little bit at odds as to what I feel like this character is is doing. I feel like we want to be in the enemy's face doing our formations as our top, but I can't doubt the fact that this is actually really solid control, and there are many characters who would, bite your hand off to take an effect like this. And the consume air is nice because we do have some generators for that. That's not too difficult to do. The +1 range might be useful if you are playing the shield as well, right? That means that you retain the range 3, which is nice. You might not get the additional +1 range to range 4. You might end up range 3, but that's still plenty of range for this type of effect. Yeah, pinning charge is a little bit at odds as to how I feel like I want to play with the formations and things, but I can't doubt the fact that that is a very, very solid control ability on the top there, and an attack to boot. The bottom is grant 3 allies within range 4, move 2. So this is another way that you can move things around, and within range 4, 3 allies, that's a lot of movement. That's a really good way to move summons around. But as a card in general, I think pinning charge is very good. It's incredibly solid control effect on the top, and something that helps us do what our character wants to do on the bottom on 17 initiative too, so you can't complain. The other level 2 is Meat Grinder. Great name for a card. Attack 4 with wound. Oh, and you've got a really interesting pattern here. This one is going to be very difficult to set up, I think. With 2 enemies in the middle there and an ally on the other side, so it's kind of like the pincer one, but it's like the mega pincer, if you like. This character is definitely going to need jump, actually. You're going to need early initiative, you're going to need jump, because you're going to want to jump over enemies and then potentially have your summon on the safe side, if you like, of the enemies, and you to be on the side that's facing maybe the rest of the room with all of the archers and what have you. This is going to be a really difficult one to set up, I think. I don't think this is going to be easy by any means, but huge reward here for doing so. An attack 4 with wound is very good. Very, very good indeed. You're going to need some jump boots or some way of enhancing jump, I think. 62 initiative is not great, and the bottom is move 3 with heal 1, range 1 with regenerate. This is nice. Just a little bit of additional value to a move 3. It's pretty good. 62 initiative though on this card means it has to be paired with something, most likely. I'm still trying to get my head around exactly how we're going to achieve these, and I feel like the best way of doing it is to have us facing the rest of the room and our ally kind of like on the safe side, if you like, with the rest of our team where maybe our ranged damage dealers are and our support characters are, and we'll be the frontline defense here. But our summon is still going to get attacked because of initiative, so that's going to make these things more difficult, right? Because suddenly it's going to be a case of initiative, and your ally is always considered to be earlier than you for initiative, so they're going to get attacked. So there's going to be many times when allies are just going to die at awkward times, and you're not going to be able to perform your attacks potentially. So I feel like the safest pick is probably pinning charge, because this top attack is just really good. 17 initiative is just useful as well, and this obviously is great for setting up some of your formations. So pinning charge, it may be a case that actually this is just necessary and this is strong, but this is a great attack though. So if you feel confident and you think that you can do this reliably, then I think you absolutely go Meat Grinder. But if not, this is a very safe and good pick in my opinion for just being able to do some damage and some control along with it. Like, this is a solid, strong ability in Gloomhaven, and will be in Frosthaven too, I expect. So Let Them Come is attack 2 and poison. That's very nice. And it's this strange pattern here, which is 1 in the front and 2 in the back. And we've got heal 2, target the ally in the blue hex of the attack and self. So we can maybe heal up to 4. Now the heal 2 is obviously not very good with our reinforcement. Our reinforcement only has 2 health. So if we were to heal it 2, it would already be dead. So there's not really much use there, but could be nice for a fellow mercenary to use, or potentially our torchbearer, which was the fire summon, if we were going down the route of using that. Attack 2 and poison is really nice. This kind of effect though is generally better on the bottom right. We want to poison something, then we want to attack it immediately. I don't feel like this character has a great way to immediately make use out of poison, or at least we haven't seen one yet. We haven't seen an attack on the bottom. So yeah, but this is obviously a great effect. And if we were to use the little buff that we can get, we could buff this up to an attack 3 poison as well. It's good potential for that. So I don't mind it. This hex pattern, I'm not sure how prevalent it's going to end up being. The setup is nice and easy though. This also works quite nice with the reinforcement actually. We can play the reinforcement right next to us, and then we can straight away go into an attack. So At 24 initiative, that's really possible. Let them come. I quite like it. I'm not quite sure how prevalent this pattern, though, is going to be. If you can hit 2 things here, you're probably pretty happy, though. The bottom is Summon and Banner of Courage. We have 7 health, so a little bit more health this time, more than the 5 that we were having our level 1 banners. And all adjacent allies gain shield 1. Now, this one, I think, is probably the weakest of the banners that we've seen so far. Now, this is purely because you have to be adjacent to gain the shield 1, which means that its position is incredibly important. 7 health does mean that it's going to maybe last a fair while. Then the Banner of Courage works quite nicely, though, if you did end up taking pinning courage, right? Because this is really good for moving those banners around for sure. It's probably the weakest effect, though, because I think you would rather have the heal 1. The reason why you would rather have the heal 1 than the shield is because that removes poison, it removes wound, it removes brittle, which generally speaking, those effects can just really annoy you over the course of a scenario. You know, being poisoned means that you can't perform a big heal yourself, right? Because you'll only remove the poison. Effects like that can really upset your game. So having just a little heal 1, a little heal 1, a little heal 1 at the beginning of each of your turns, kind of like the regenerate stuff, right, is really going to be very useful. That doesn't necessarily mean it's unplayable or it's bad. I still feel like it's quite a nice effect, but I think it's the weaker of the banners that we've seen. And the top attack is just kind of okay. It could be great, but it's okay. A little bit underwhelming here, I think, level 3 for this card. So the other card we have is Head of the Hammer, which is attack 7. Huge damage right there. 7 damage with stun as well. So yeah, that's a very premium attack right there. And the little pattern that we have is us. Then we have the summon behind us. Very easy setup for that one. And the enemy in front of us. Very simple one to set up. Burn though. So this is a big burn. Here you go. We didn't have any up to this point in time. Well, here it is. 3 XP though is a lot of experience points. Stun is very good. I feel like this is what we're going to see in Frosthaven with stun cards now. I feel like this is going to be the new normal for stuns. This could end up being very good. We may not get repeatable stuns, or if we do get repeatable stuns, they might be very hard to do or require lots of hoops and to jump through to be able to do that. But again, having a big burn top like this means that the bottom is going to need to be very useful for us, because we don't want to use this on the first turn of the game. We're looking for the bottom of this card to give us value while we wait for the opportunity to do that. So the bottom is move 3. The 87 initiative, by the way, as well, is really bad for stuns and effects. I mean, we could stun at the end, but it's just, you really want the option to be able to go late or early. So it's better to kind of have an early initiative on these stuns, I think. Yeah, don't like the initiative for the top. Move 3, consume air to add additional +2 move. So that could be a move 5, decent. And muddle, target all at range 1. That's kind of average, I think. The move 5 is obviously quite nice, so you're going to take move 5. You're not going to take move 5. But the muddle all at range 1 is a bit underwhelming. It doesn't really do anything, but I guess it's like almost like added. I would probably take this if it was just move 5 without having to consume any elements. I would probably take it. But the fact that we have to consume air, and we do generate air, but we also have some really good ways of spending air. So perhaps we don't want to spend it for this. I don't think the muddle effect is, takes it over the top either. If there was earlier initiative, I think maybe I would rank this a bit higher. But the fact that these two effects are on 87, I don't love. Perhaps Let Them Come will be the pick in the end. Or potentially go back and choose one of the cards at level 2 that you didn't take. I think out of these 2 cards, this is obviously very strong, but I've just always sort of learnt through experience that burn stuns, one-offs, are generally not super playable, or if they are going to be playable, then they have always traditionally needed to have a really good bottom to kind of keep them going, and then you just go bang and you use that stun right at the end of the scenario when it's coming down to the wire. You might lose if the enemy takes a turn, like you're thinking, oh, if the enemy heals this round, then I've just lost because I'm going to exhaust before I can kill them because I just don't have enough damage, or we're going to lose the scenario if that cultist summons a living bones this turn, right? And this just doesn't, this with the 87 initiative doesn't really do that. And this is maybe not strong enough to just keep that going, like to make this worthwhile, like just having this effect open to us. This does not carry this card for the entire scenario, in my opinion. Yeah, it might just be let them come. I quite like this. This is a very easy pattern, and I quite like it. The 24 initiative is good. I think if you can poison 2 things, you're pretty happy. Yeah, I'm probably going to end up going let them come, I think. But that's because also I'm going to focus a lot on trying to get these formations, and I really want to explore that element of the character, try and see how reliably I can make formations as well. So the more formations, the merrier, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, let them come, I think, will probably end up being my pick. But if this ends up being the new normal for stuns, then possibly Head of the Hammer will be just a really safe and good pickup for you. Level 4, we have Boldening Blow, which is attack 4, target 1 enemy in the red hexes, and we get Disarm. Interesting. Okay, so target 1 enemy in the red hexes, and they get Disarm. And then we have target all allies in the blue hexes of the attack ability, and they get Bless. So we attack 4, and we do target all 4 of those enemies, right? But as an additional effect, we can target 1 of those enemies in those red hexes and disarm them. That's how I'm reading that. Whether or not that is 100% true, I think I might need to check that. But the way that I see this is it's going to be attack 4, which we do against all enemies in the red hexes. But we can also do this, which is that we can target 1 enemy and disarm 1 enemy within those 4. And that is really good. Really, really good. But this is a difficult... This is the first one that we've seen that requires 2 allies, though, to set up. So if you're going down the banner route, then this could be a good way of capitalizing on having multiple banners out at the same time. Or of course, if you're playing 4-player and you've got more characters, this could also be really, really good. I don't think it's necessarily difficult to have 2 allies behind you. It gives you a nice sort of variety of enemy positions. And Disarm is obviously incredibly strong. The Bless as well, which is quite nice, because what the Bless does is if you have your own summons, then you're going to be basically putting the Blesses in your own deck. You'll take that. This could be Bless yourself twice if both of those allies were your summons, right? So that's cool. But also that gives a nice incentive to your allies to actually help you out, you know, to say, hey, can you please come forward and occupy this hex? And they're like, oh no, I don't want to get hit. So, well, I'll bless you, you know, I can give you a bless. So that's quite nice. I like the fact that it gives a benefit to the allies in this situation. This could be very strong. Again, it's another disarm here. And if you could attack 4 against 4 things, that's really good. Not that you probably would ever get all 4. I think it's a much more reasonable thing to get 2 or 3. I mean, still, attacking 4 against 2 or 3 things is still really, really good. This is a very strong attack. It's got some setup to it, but boy, is this a strong attack. 72 initiative is not amazing. Pretty bad, really, again, for disarm. It's interesting that I've seen that they've paired disarm effects. They put them on late initiatives. Now, whether or not that's because they just expect you to pair them with a low initiative and they're sort of like forcing you to have to do that, does mean that you can't kind of combo this with something else maybe in such an easy way. You're going to have to sometimes just give up a low initiative for like a move 2 or something like that. It also means that it's harder to set up in different ways. You've got move 2 on the bottom with grant 2 allies within range 3, move 3. I think this move 3 clause is going to be super important to be able to positioning you. Definitely, definitely. Well, so far, Boldening Blow for me is a slam dunk. Not only does it give us movement, it grants 2 allies, the 3 movement, which I think is what we need, but the top as well. One hell of an attack on the top. Boldening Blow, what a card. Really, really good card. So the other level 4's got a lot to live up to here. Air support. Attack for range 3 PS2 and generate wind. So that's nothing exciting there at all. That's really not very exciting, but actually that is a very, very solid attack. Attack 4 at range 3 with that PS2, which is important because that means that this is going to potentially scale much better than a normal attack. It's not going to be that this attack 4, once you get to level 9, is going to fall off a cliff because you're facing loads of enemies with shield 3 and 4 or whatever and it doesn't do anything. This will actually still mean that it will be relevant, so I like it. and it generates air, which is an element that we know we can use, and we have some really powerful ways we can use it. Maybe there's a slight sub-theme of this character going on here where you can either focus on it feels like you can focus either on the formations or maybe a little bit more on the kind of ranged generate air, use air kind of side of things. Like there seems to be a bit of a sub-theme going on, right? Where potentially you want air for this. But I think like this is obviously the stronger formation sort of card, because you've got, not only have you got a good formation attack on the top, but you've also got a summon on the bottom, which is going to help you make formations. So it feels like there's some kind of like a slight different kind of direction here with two different builds. One build maybe focusing a little bit more on the generation and use of elements, and one that's focused a little bit more on doing damage and using the formations to do that damage and those effects. I like the formations because I think that's the most unique thing that this character's got going for it, aside from some of the summons. So that's what I'll be doing. But yeah, this is a solid attack on 20 initiative as well. Really good initiative. So can't say anything bad about air support. It's just nothing flashy. The bottom is Summon Trained Falcon. 1 health, 2 attack, 3 move, and flying. Future MQ here. I actually feel like this summon now is actually ridiculously powerful. Now that I've re-clarified the rules, so if you didn't see the start of the video, please go back and watch it, because I go over the change of the rules in Frosthaven where you can actually control the movement when you gift or grant movement to allies. Now you get to control that, even if it doesn't specify controlled by you. Now that makes this bird incredibly useful because of the flying. It can now actually fly over enemies, get behind enemies, and be in those pincer movements. Very, very easy for you. So actually, now, in hindsight, looking back with that change of rule, I actually feel like this summon is insanely good. Really, really useful for setting up some of your formations, especially your disarm formations and ones like your stun formations. So I think the bird is actually really good value and really, really useful. Boldening Blow is just a slam dunk of a card for me. So I don't think the Trained Falcon is maybe good enough, but I can see that this has a very solid position. And actually, maybe this will end up being better than I think. At level 5, we have Hold the Line, which is shield 2, grant all adjacent allies shield 2 too. So it shields yourself for 2, and then it grants all adjacent allies shield 2. And this is a aura indicated by this kind of thing. This is like an aura effect. So you would put this card into your active area and it would remain there until the end of turn. And at the end of turn, that's what this symbol means. It would then go to your discard pile. Typically, I don't like shield effects on the top of a card unless you are going like all in. This character very much wants to be attacking, doing their damage, doing their formations. Shielding 2 is not being active. I like to be more active and try and attack things. So I like when, for example, shield is tagged onto the bottom of moves, and when shield is maybe tagged, a little bit of shield is maybe tagged onto a small attack or something like that. So shield 2, grant all adjacent allies shield 2 is very good, and also means that it can protect your summons somewhat and can protect banners somewhat. So this is usable. This is definitely very usable. It's not bad by any means. 5 initiative, really, really good. So to be honest, you might end up picking up this card just for the 5 initiative. It might be a move 2 initiative 5, and that could be okay. But yeah, I think the top is usable and definitely a tanking card. So if you're going more of a tank route and you want to be a bit more reliable as a tank, then this is absolutely the kind of ability that you want. And the granting all adjacent allies just as a nice protection, just in case they go earlier than you, or there's a target 2 or something like that. Or for example, you have summons, because your summons are always going to be focused before you. The bottom is move 3, shield 2, and retaliate 3, but it is a burn. It's basically another big burn here. I guess this is fine. It's kind of interesting because the shield 2 is obviously something that we could do anyway for free on the top here without having to burn a card, but it's on the bottom, which is where I like it. It means that we could also attack, which I like. This could be quite a good door opening style card. Move 3, potentially if you have some movement boots, increase that movement. Then you go for the shield 2, and retaliate 3 is obviously a lot of retaliate, especially if you already have some more shield as well, like through your items or through that burn shield that we had at level 1 that was available to us. So this could add up to be quite a lot of damage against certain enemy types. Retaliate's bad against ranged, obviously, unless you can muddle them and keep them next to you or immobilize them. So there are some considerations there. I think this is okay, possibly a good door opener. That's where I would kind of place this. It's 5 initiative, which is good. And it's a good door opener. Move 3, move into a room, shield 2, retaliate 3. Then all of the enemies just start walking towards you and you're protected essentially. So a good door opening card for sure. The other level 5 we have is Explosive Epicenter, which is attack 3 with push 1. Grant the ally in the blue hex of the attack ability and self move 1. Interesting. And that happens after the attack. So first we do the attack, which is attack 3 with push 1. If we're in the middle, this is weird. This is one of those patterns where it's just like you can ignore half of these red hexes. So attacking 6 things for 3 damage with push 1 is just not happening. This is most likely going to end up being 3, maybe 2, maybe 4. But this is a bit of a reach. And I'm not sure if I think the pattern's really going to happen much either. Unless you run into the middle of the room on purpose, I don't see you getting surrounded very easily, especially you and your summon getting surrounded very easily. And the fact that there needs to be an open hex next to you, because if you move in and then the enemies get to go before you, then all of the enemies are going to fill in these squares, potentially, if you're going to summon and play on the same turn. So if you're going to use the bottom as a summon action and then use this as a top, this just isn't going to work because these enemies are going to move into these hexes. And it's just going to throw the whole thing off. I don't like this one as much. The fact that it says grant the ally in the blue hex of the attack ability and self on move 1, it's like, I guess you could move slightly away, but I don't know. I don't think I like this one. This one I think is more difficult, and I don't think the payoff is great. You have to put yourself in a lot of risk for not much reward with this one, in my opinion. 78 initiative as well. Not so keen. On the bottom is once per turn, on your turn, while an enemy is within range 3, grant 1 adjacent ally and self move 1. Whoa, okay. Here we go. This is 2 XP. This is a burn. This is a permanent effect. A permanent ability that we get for the rest of the scenario once we play this. Once per turn, on our turn, while an enemy is within range 3, grant 1 adjacent ally and self move 1. Yeah, that's great. To be honest, just you getting the move 1 is great here. Regardless of giving it to an ally, I think just being able to give it to yourself is really good. And actually, this just moves the banners in such an efficient manner, right? You could move and then you move the banner as well. Oh man, yeah. This is really good for the banners. Really, really good. Okay, so we got a mediocre top, but the bottom of this card actually just fundamentally kind of unlocks your character in many ways. This makes the banners super powerful because they're just going to move 1 hex every single turn pretty much. Well, you'd hope so anyway. Yeah, Explosive Epicenter. Okay, top underwhelming, but bottom is slam dunk an amazing effect. Definitely something that you want if you're going for the banners, if you're really going hard on the banners for sure. Even if you're not, though, I think this is still a very good thing to just give to an ally, because quite often players end up coming 1 or 2 moves short over the course of a scenario. Lots and lots of characters have powerful bottom effects that aren't moves, right? Like, for example, we've also got a buff, right? We've got a buff that is a bottom action. So if we needed to move, then we can't really play that bottom buff. This fundamentally kind of, I'm not going to say breaks the game, but it really frees you up a lot. And presumably because it's a move 1 action, we could use boots to add to that too, if we wanted to. I'm all over this. I think that this is going to be incredibly strong. Now, we only have 10 card hand, so this just means that we go down to 9. And if you're playing the banners, you're going to go down even less. This is probably why the character's 10 card hand is going to be difficult for players to manage. Because with this and maybe 1 banner out or maybe 2 banners out, that is a big loss. You've got to be very careful about exhausting with this character for sure. But this is hugely powerful and impactful if you're going for the banners or if you're just going for reinforcements or maybe even like the hawk or something like that could be good. Or if you've got allies who have summons. Really good synergy with the Bone Shaper here too. Yeah, awesome. Really cool. This is amazing. So out of the 2 cards, I am definitely taking Explosive Epicenter without question. I feel like this is a great card for a certain build, I think. But I mean, how can you turn up something like this, which fundamentally just kind of gives you a free action every single round? I think this is hugely powerful. giving you just a free move action pretty much every single round as long as there's an enemy within range 3. And let's face it, most of the times that's going to be the case. So easy pick for me, Explosive Epicenter. At level 6, we have heal 3, range 3 with regenerate, and we can enhance this with a +1. We have consume air to get +1 target, which is nice. So this could be up to a heal 6 potentially. This is a nice support ability. Don't think that this character is really strong on that element of their game, though, I would say. Unless you're doing this to yourself between rooms, which is kind of interesting. In which case, I don't know whether or not you want to consume air. But this is definitely a card that could be used for that air build, if you like. That build that really cares about creating and consuming air reliably. This is not a bad effect to consume air for by any means. Although I feel like this is kind of a little bit at odds of what the character's really about. I feel like we want to be at the front, and hopefully there's a more of a support character that's behind us helping to do this kind of stuff rather than us having to do it ourselves. But yeah, this is okay. And if you were going for that air kind of consumption build, I don't think this is bad. And as I said, I think regenerate is going to be a really big deal in Frosthaven. It's going to be very, very useful. So yeah, don't mind it. 75 initiative is generally pretty bad for heals. You want to put them on early, so then perhaps they get the tick of regenerate that turn rather than having to wait until the next turn to get a tick of regenerate. But sometimes you want to do late heals too. So the bottom is move 3, pull 2, target 2 at range 3. That's actually really useful, really useful for the formation build. You want to be able to get those enemies into those prime spots, and this really helps you do that and allows you to maybe pull them into a position and pincer them between you and your summon, possibly, things like that. Like I said before, I think the push and pull are going to be more important on this character than we think, just because of the ability to manipulate enemy positions. This is very solid. I don't really like the top for the build that I'm thinking of going with this character, but I do like the bottom for this. So 75 initiative is maybe what kills the card for us, though. But we'll see what the other level 6 is. So the other level 6 is a Barricade, which is attack 3 with wound. Grant all allies in the blue hexes of the attack ability and self a shield 1. There you go. That's like exactly what I said when I said I liked shield. I like shield when it's on the top and it's a part of an attack. And we have it right here. This is a really interesting pattern, though. 2 allies to either side of us might be a bit difficult to make happen. But this, again, is going to be maybe targeting 2 or 3 things. I think 4 is a reach, but attack 3 and wound is very good. I mean, if you're playing just with your own summons, the shield 1 is okay, but it's not great, right? We know that the reinforcement's probably going to die to a single attack, especially at level 6. So there are some things you need to worry about there. I wonder if you can enhance the movement. Can you enhance the movement? You can enhance the movement on the reinforcement. So you can enhance the health. I wouldn't bother. I would enhance the movement. And this could actually make this much better. I think putting this to +3 could actually make your life a lot easier. So there is that. That is something that we can consider. Just thinking about movement and positioning wise to try and make this happen. If you can pull this off, then this is obviously very good. And I like the little shield 1. 16 initiative as well is great. It means that we're going to go early enough to get the shield, and also the enemy will probably take a tick of wound damage that round, which is really what you want too. So not only are we getting the shield 1, but we're doing the attack 3 and essentially an attack 4, because the wound should hopefully go off, and wound is obviously very good. The bottom here, though, is Summon Banner of Valor, which is 5 health, no move, no attack, no range as usual. Negates the first source of damage to an adjacent ally each round. Wow. Okay. In terms of tanking, this is better. This is much better than like... Wow, is it better than Shield 2? Probably. Actually, probably not. Depending on how many enemies you've got, right? If you're playing 2-player, this, and there's like less enemies, then this could be insanely good. You might only be facing like 3 enemies in a room, and this basically just takes 1 enemy out. Yeah, I like this. I like it. But I like it much more with lower player counts than I do with higher player counts. Also, there are things like wound and stuff that can sneak up and just ruin this, right? So, for example, if you're wounded, then that is damage. So this would only negate 1, which is not great. Not really what you want. You'd much rather have the heal banner, right? However, if you've got brittle on you and the enemy comes over and hits you and hits a ×2 and you're about to die, then obviously this is going to look like, you know, one of the best banners you can get. There's some swinginess to this banner for sure. It's not as reliable as the other banners in which you know what you're getting. This could be, some scenarios it could be MVP, some other scenarios this could just be do nothing. So interesting. 16 initiative is great, see, for this card. So on the 16 initiative as well, you could potentially put this summon out nice and early to just negate some damage for that particular round, so it could like immediately be useful. I quite like the top of this. This banner I think is situationally useful. Some parties are going to find it more useful than others. This is going to be quite difficult to set up. To be honest, I may end up just going for this just because of the pull. I don't know. This is a difficult one. I feel like naturally Barricade would be the obvious choice here. It seems like it would be the obvious choice. The top attack is really good. You've got 16 initiative too. The banner on the bottom is useful in certain situations. But I don't think you can undervalue that this is sneaky going to be very good at setting up your formations and making sure that the enemies are going to, you know, fall into those formations and you're going to be able to do damage to them. So I think level 6 is a difficult choice. You've also still got some fairly reasonable choices if you were to go back as well. So yeah, level 6 is not going to be an easy one. Level 7, we have a Lead from Afar, which is attack 2, range 4, add +2 attack for each ally adjacent to the target. This is pretty similar, right, to the other one that we had, another ranged attack. I'm not sure I feel great about these ranged attacks. It's definitely kind of like a more standoffish build with this character, where you create air, you do a little bit more ranged damage, you are a bit more support so you can heal. So there's kind of like, there's an interesting different build here. Now whether or not it's the strongest build or not, I don't think so. I think it's quite reliable though. But Lead from Afar could in theory be very good, right? This could, if you had 2 allies, this could actually be like an attack 6 at range 4, which for a non-burn, you'll bite someone's hand off for that in regular Gloomhaven. Attack 6, range 4, non-burn, yes please, I'll take it any day of the week. But it just doesn't really fit into what we're doing, considering that we're trying to be up in enemies' faces, I think, with this formation style of play. But you can't doubt that this would be a very, very strong card if you're playing with a Bone Shaper, for example, and they have lots of skeletons running around and grouping in onto enemies, then it's very good for that. Or if you're playing with potentially the Drifter, and the Drifter's going to be your main tank, maybe, and this could be okay. 80 initiative though is quite bad in my opinion, because you're going to need to probably pair this with an early card. Or you want to go slightly after your allies maybe, but it's a bit awkward, right? Because maybe all of those living bones are now dead. You kind of want to let the living bones get summoned, then they run in and they do their attack and they're adjacent. Then you immediately jump in and attack before the enemies get a chance to attack. So in order to maximize this +2, you're going to have to consider your initiative very carefully, I think. The bottom is another summon. It's Summon Longbowman. We have 4 health, attack 2, move 2, range 4 with muddle. Ooh, this is a summon. Okay, so this summon absolutely does not work very well with your formations at all. Really not very good at all, because it's a ranged summon, so it's never going to get into those adjacent positions that you want. And if you were to bring them into those adjacent positions, you're just jeopardizing them, which isn't really what you want to do. But without a shadow of a doubt, the best summons in Gloomhaven have always been the ranged summons, and this one has range 4 with muddle attached to it. It's not the best thing in the world. We've seen poison attached to these effects before, which has been absolutely broken and amazing. So muddle is nowhere near as good as poison or wound or curse or disarm and stun, of course, but it's not bad. And the fact that it's only attack 2 does mean though that it's going to probably struggle against shielded enemies. And if there's going to be a lot of shielded enemies in Frosthaven, then perhaps this is going to be weaker than what our experience tells us. However, our experience tells us that these kinds of summons are usually very, very good. So I'm going to use my experience here and say that I think that the Longbowman is going to be a very good value summon that's going to follow you throughout the entire scenario and is always going to be chipping in, doing damage every single round for pretty much the entire scenario, because they're very, very easy to keep ranged summons safe. The other level 7 is Try Thrust, which is attack 7, stun, Ooh, but we have this very kind of interesting pattern to try and set up here. So here's a non-burn stun, and I guess this is the price of a non-burn stun now. Level 7 and some significant setup here. Possible with the banners though. Very possible with the banners. Try thrust. I mean, this is obviously very good. Attack 7 with stun, 27 initiative too. This is a dream card right here. Can we set this up or not? I'm not sure. Going to be very scenario dependent. I also like the fact that this is also just kind of like an automatic nerf to this effect, because usually with a stun, you would just run up and stun. Oh, that enemy is summoning, so go stun that enemy. Or that enemy's doing the most annoying thing this round, so you go deal with that one. But you can't really do that with these. You need to already know which one you're going to stun, and you already need to kind of set that up in a way in order to do it. So you're not just going to be able to react to the enemy ability flips and say, that's the enemy that we should go and stun because it's doing the worst thing. Obviously incredibly strong. How easy is this pattern going to be to do? I think it's a hard one, but the payoff is huge. Huge if you can do this. The bottom is move 3 with attack 1, target 3. Interesting. That's nice. Just being able to target some things. Attack on the bottom, always nice to see. And we can consume air to target 3 enemies within 2 hexes instead. Okay, so we can actually extend that range a little bit. Still a melee attack though. Still would be considered a melee attack because it is not a ranged attack. It just basically extends it to 2 hexes. That's interesting. I think that's pretty decent. Just being able to do a little bit of damage. I mean, it depends on what your flips are, of course. It depends on how good your modifier deck is at level 7. We will go through perks at the end of this. I do think that perks, like I said before, you're going to have less perks that are designed around making your deck more efficient. You're going to have more perks around the mechanics of the campaign, the mechanics of the character, or the special thing that the character does. You're going to have that. It's going to be more prevalent. So I feel like attack 1s do diminish in value because of that. But you're never going to say no to this. And this is I think this is a decent use of the air element if you've still got it kicking around and you're still using it. And the air build is obviously something that's here, and trying to keep that into your rotation is going to be really important. But we haven't had like a move and create air yet, which I think would have been more useful. So between these 2 cards, to be honest, I might consider going back and taking something else if I didn't feel like Tri-Thrust was possible. Tri-Thrust is obviously incredibly good and incredibly strong if you can reliably do it. And I think like that's the big question mark. Can you reliably do it? I haven't played the game enough to be able to say at this point in time, you know, that the Banner Spear will always be able to do this. So I need to play the Banner Spear in order to do so. And that at this point is something that at level 7 you will probably have a sense for. And yeah, if this kind of payoff though feels good to you, then absolutely you take this. Tri-Thrust is probably the pick because it also has a decent movement and initiative as well that can be useful. At level 8 we have Taunting Howl, which is pull 2, target all at range of 4 and shield 3. This is a burn though, 2 XP, and you get it for the rest of the round. I thematically love the idea of this though, being able to get all enemies really close to you and saying, hey, you know, it is a proper taunt. It's just like the World of Warcraft kind of taunts and RPG game kind of taunts, right? Get all of those enemies to focus you, pull them towards you so that you're the focus, and you shield 3 at the same time, so then the enemies can't really do too much to you. You could pair this with that really, really big burn shield on the bottom as well with the retaliate, right? If you wanted to go all in, burn 2 cards and have like shield 5 and retaliate 3. Kind of interesting. could be something fun to do for a round, but it's a lot of investment. That's 2 burn cards, I think, which is kind of rough. I don't really love this, I think, in this particular situation, because of the fact we only have 10 cards, and I think we have better burns than this. So I'd probably be staying away from Taunting Howl, I think, but situationally might be useful. And if the bottom is good, then perhaps during the course of a scenario we can use it. 11 initiative, so if the bottom's good, then this is a very usable card. So move 3, grant 2 allies within range 3, move 3, so it's an improvement on an ability that we already have. This could be very playable. Like I said before though, that problem with the monster focus and how the AI is going to work might make things difficult, but I feel like this effect is pretty damn playable. So yeah, perhaps just the bottom and the initiative is going to save this card and make it playable and a selection for us. The other level 8 is Sweeping Aid, which is attack 4, pierce 2, and immobilize. And this is a weird one, right? This has got our summon actually in front of us. So our summon is doing the tanking. That's weird. I don't feel like that's something that we would typically do. However, I like the fact that this has got immobilize. So like maybe your summon will die because they unfortunately take damage, but then they're all immobilized, so they can't move towards you. So your summon kind of ends up sacrificing themselves for you, I guess. An attack 4 PS2 against 3 things. Very good. Very, very strong indeed. This is okay. I quite like this. I like the theme of it. I like the idea. I like that it's another different pattern. I think in general, you're going to want to mix your patterns up. And it's nice that every single pattern has been a bit different in some way as well. The 73 initiative is obviously pretty bad though for that top attack, I would say. The bottom is heal 2, range 2, move 3, then heal 2, range 2 again. So this is potentially 4 health with a move. That's a very good situational kind of heal effect. I quite like it. Great for removing poison or brittle or wound from allies or yourself. Good for a support build, but also just pretty good for a tank build, to be honest. This is a tricky one. Possibly taking Taunting Howl just for the bottom here, or potentially going back and maybe taking a different card. I think there's a few opportunities maybe to do that. Out of the two, I feel like the theme of this one is awesome, but I don't know how many of these formation cards we're ultimately going to want. So perhaps we end up taking this as just some more setup, some safe setup on 11 initiative as well. That could just be really, really useful for you. And this, although I don't really like this top effect, maybe it'll end up saving you somewhere down the line. And perhaps actually in a survive so many rounds type scenarios, perhaps this could actually save you. So level 9, we have Take No Prisoners. And look at that huge AoE, absolutely massive. But don't let it fool you. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to get all of those things. I think you'll be pretty happy if you could hit 3 or 4 things from that huge AoE. The allies will be set up behind you, which is, I think that's pretty doable. That's one of the easier ones to set up for sure. Having them sort of behind you. It's easier than having them further away or behind the enemies for sure. Attack 3 and poison. I think that's very strong. Attack 3 and poison, 3 or 4 things, most of the things in a room potentially. That's really good. I'm all about this. I think Take No Prisoners this is probably our strongest formation we've had yet. Really is. Aside from maybe the stun. But obviously we can only stun one thing. But walking into a room and then potentially being able to poison a lot of things. Now, it is difficult for us to just walk into a room and do that, obviously, because our allies' positioning is so important for this character. It's going to be hard to pass up something like this. 85 initiative kind of sucks. It really does, but it does mean that at least the enemies will have clumped around you if you're at the front, I guess, at this point in time. So you've got that going for you. The bottom is Summon Banner of Doom. Okay, 9 health. All enemies within range 4 suffer 1 damage at the start of their turns. Wow. Now that is something special. That really is something special. I really like that. That's like wound, but it's like turbo wound. And it's a wound that they can't get rid of. As long as the Banner of Doom is around, it's just striking fear into the enemies and they're taking damage at the start of their turns because they're just so scared. They're so scared. I really like the bottom of this. This is cool. Now, this is what a level 9 effect I think should look like. This is really, really, really interesting. Something that you could drop down in the middle of most rooms. And as long as you can protect it, boy, that damage will add up. What a cool effect. Very, very powerful. Very, very thematic. Very suitable as a level 9 ability. Yeah. The top and bottom of this are slam dunks. I would love to play the top and then maybe short rest or stamina potion and get the bottom and just slam the banner down. Because once you've poisoned everything in the room, I don't think there's much cause to necessarily spam the top of this card. Okay, well, the other card's going to have to do some work because this is a really, really cool level 9. So Hail of Spears is attack 5, range 4, add 1 target for each adjacent banner summon. Okay, so this is like the banner. That's interesting because I didn't really consider at first that the ranged and support build was really going to use the banners, but I guess you use the banners more to support your allies than you do to support yourself. It's good that the banners can be used in two ways like that. You've kind of got the the formation build that the banners can be used in order to help you gain those formations, but you've also got this kind of slightly more support build where you use the banners and you use your ranged attacks and your heals to actually support somebody else as the main tank. And that's pretty cool as well, I think. So attack 5, range 4, add +1 target for each adjacent banner summon. So if you could maybe get 2 additional targets out of this, that's 15 damage on range 4. You're going to be able to attack loads of stuff with that. That's very strong. I like that. That's definitely the strength of a level 9 attack. However, how many summons can we really have out? And specifically banner summons as well. How many banner summons can we really have out? We only have 10 cards in our hand. This is going to very much tax us. It's really annoying that the Banner of Doom is on the other card here. Really, I would love to have both of these level 9s. Teleport each adjacent banner summon to a hex adjacent to one of the targets. So that's kind of the risky thing, right? It's good in a way because maybe you're moving the banners towards the door potentially or towards the next room, but it's bad because you then put them in risk. But this could also be useful in a way because you could maybe get it adjacent to an ally and then that could help that ally out maybe. I also like the fact that this is a top attack, so you can actually play a banner and then immediately use the top of this to get the +1 target. So that's good. So the positioning of this is very important. The fact that this is the top and the banners are all bottom effects. Play the banner, then you immediately play this, then you teleport that banner to your ally on the front line who's in a situation that needs it, right? Either the heal one or I probably go for the plus attack one, maybe. This is really useful, really cool effect actually. I like it. I think that this is very suitable for a level 9. Really cool. It's like the final card in a build. It feels like it's the final card in a build. You get that payoff for really going for all of those banners and for really going down that route. I like it. Yeah, really cool. The bottom is move 4 and recover up to 2 of your lost cards with banner summon abilities. Immediately play the recovered cards and perform their banner summon abilities. Wow. Okay, this is cool. All right. Wow, 2 really cool level 9s. So I think that this character's support build might be pretty decent, especially considering that the formations can sometimes are going to be like really annoying to do. And the support kind of like just make banners and attack things at range and throw heals for your allies and stuff. Just provide incremental value with your banners and with those attacks with his heals. That could be really strong build for this character actually. I really like this. That's awesome. This character's definitely got some really cool stuff going on. And I love the fact that you've got 2 very distinct kind of builds and you've got these banners that kind of like bridge the 2 in the middle there. Some of them could be useful for helping you with your formations, and some of them are purely like maybe better for going all in and going more of a support build. I mean that you could move 4, recover 2 banners, immediately play them adjacent to you and maybe help an ally out immediately. 44 initiative does make that a little bit trickier, but wow, okay. So the 2 level 9 cards are great. I mean, I think I'm probably going down this route because I'm going to try to do formations. I think that's really my thing. I think that I would like to try out personally. But actually, this character's got some really good cards in the other build. Some really good cards. So this is going to be a very interesting one. And I think that there's definitely 2 routes you can go. I'm going to be taking this because I think this is thematically awesome and this is a really good attack. But I'd be tempted to play this character again and maybe go for the other build because so far, from what I've seen from Frosthaven, this character is the best one for 2 distinct builds that really have their own identity potentially. So this is really, really interesting. So those are the cards. So let's go and have a look at the perks. So the first perk we've got is replace 1 -1 card with 1 Rolling Shield 1 card, which is, I think, decent. It's nice to get some rolling shields to be able to keep your tank up, especially if you're going formations. So I like this perk. I think this is quite nice. Removing a bad thing and adding a rolling good thing. And with the changes to advantage, we don't care about rolling anymore. But this character doesn't seem to really care about strengthen either. So unless you're getting it from other means, then I feel like this is very solid. Replace 1 +0 card with 1 +0, add +1 for each ally adjacent to the target card. That's pretty nice too, right? Especially if you're going for formations. So that's another key one, I think, for the formation one. However, there are some where you're actually attacking things behind other enemies, right? Not every single formation is adjacent to you and your ally in some way. So you could obviously draw these in awkward spots where actually they don't do anything. They're just normal plus zeros. But I think, you know, in general, you're going to have some good opportunities for that. Add 1+1 disarm card. Very, very strong. You're not removing cards, though. I think that's one thing that they're trying to balance a little bit more. But adding 2 disarms, that might be a very strong perk to go for. Add 1+2 and push 1 card. I like that less than the disarms for sure. Add 2 rolling +1 cards. Okay, I think I'm still on the disarms here though. Add 2 rolling heal 1 self cards. Probably still on the disarms. So I like the first 3. I like the top one. I like the middle one, and I like the replace one. I like the replace one, and I like the disarm one. So these top 3 to me, I think are where I'm at so far. Ignore negative item effects and remove 1 -1 card. This is going to be the standard, bog standard perk that pretty much every Banner Spear is going to get, unless you're going for that heavy support build, because you're going to want to wear armor, and that's going to have negative effects, unfortunately. So whether or not you get this as your first perk, or if you get it as your second or third, is going to very much depend on what items are available to you and how much gold you've got, and what you intend to buy first. At the end of each of your long rests, 1 ally within range 3 may perform move 2, with you controlling the move abilities of any summons. Now, whoa, there we go. Now that is big. That is huge. Now you do have to do a long rest, which makes it a little bit more awkward for setting up, obviously, your formations. But that is really big, and that's really big for all builds. Because if you're going for the support build with the banners, or if you're going for the formations build with the reinforcement summon and potentially with maybe 1 or 2 banners yourself you might consider playing, then this is hugely impactful. Allows you to long rest and move summons even closer to the door before you kind of open the door. So you clear a room, you long rest near the door, then you let all of those summons use you as a focus with the new rules, and they move towards you. That's really, really good. That might be the first perk I pick here. When you open a door with a move ability, add +3. Okay, this is the perk that I take. This is the perk that I take. Now, obviously, there's going to be some instances when +3 move isn't going to be good enough. There's also going to be instances where there's no doors in a scenario, or there's very few doors in a scenario. But this does make you very, very efficient at opening doors, and you have shield, so you have ways to maybe open doors very effectively. Depending on your party comp, maybe this won't be great, because I feel like the long rest moving an ally, this actually appeals to both builds. I think this might only appeal to the more formation, well, not even necessarily the formation actually, because the formation build, you need to have your allies with you, and that's not really going to happen with this. Your allies are going to be left behind. So I don't know, perhaps not, but this seems like very good for the tank build, obviously. Very, very good. Which one I get first depends, I think, on my composition. If I am sole tank, then maybe this is what we get. If I am not, then I think this. But this is going to work with so many builds. It says 1 ally within range 3 as well, right? So you could just give that to one of your fellow mercenaries who's a little bit slow, and that they'll be very grateful, I would imagine. And the final one is once each scenario during your turn, gain shield 2 for the remainder of the round, and that's a double perk. So you have to invest 2 perk points into that before you unlock it. That's what this new symbol means. Now that's pretty solid too. I mean, not great for the support build, I don't think. That's not necessarily really what you want to be doing. But man, for like the formations and stuff, that's really good. You just go early and be like, this is the turn I'm using it. So what this actually does is it gives you a small little card that you have, and you just have that in front of you, and you just remember to kind of cash it in if you like when you want to do it. So obviously you need to do this on a round where you're already playing an early initiative. So you're going to be playing an early initiative already, and obviously the enemy has flipped cards, and you've worked out, okay, I'm going to be the focus this round, or I want to be the focus this round. I'm going to play this and I'm going to do it. I think what I'll probably end up doing here is I'll probably end up taking this first. Then I will probably end up syncing maybe both perks here, and then maybe here. And to be honest, you're going to need this as well. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 perks right there that most banner spears are probably going to want, with maybe these 2 at the bottom being slightly more situational, and maybe this one being slightly more situational. But I think the average banner spear that's going for formation is probably going to end up wanting pretty much all of these. And that's 5 perk points before you've even decided to move on to improving your deck. That's really big. So those perks, I think the perks are really interesting for this character, actually. And I'm looking forward to trying to work out which one to go first, because there's definitely a lot of choice here. Okay, guys, well, there we have it. There's my thoughts on the Banner Spear. This is one that actually I think has evolved a little bit, not so much compared to some of the others from when we initially saw. My first impressions before was that this character was going to be quite strong and was probably going to be the one that a lot of players who like to play with more powerful characters might sort of seek out and play due to some of the abilities that they had. But I do really like the fact that they have 2 kind of distinct different kind of builds that you could maybe go, and some diversity there. I think this is going to be quite rewarding characters for people to play. The formations reward good planning and good teamwork and being able to use your abilities well, as well as just having the banners there to support your friends, and also being able to shield and tank a little bit as well. I think that's going to be appealing to a lot of players. So I think the Banner Spear is going to probably go down as one of the more favorite characters, but it does need that setup, and if you miss those formations, boy, that's going to feel bad. So you do have to think about that a little bit, that if you miss doing those formations or it just kind of falls apart, it's going to be maybe like playing the triangles class a little bit in Gloomhaven, where just the pieces didn't really kind of fit sometimes because enemies moved around or different things happened or transpired, and you just couldn't quite do what you wanted to do. And that might make the Banner Spear a little bit more frustrating sometimes, because you're not completely in control of your own destiny at all times. But I think that this character can be quite rewarding, and I really like what they've done here. And I think this is going to be a really good character for Frosthaven, especially as a starter character. If you got this far, thank you so much. Please consider tossing the video a like and subscribing if you're not already, to stay up to date with all of the Frosthaven stuff that I've been doing on the channel. I will be constantly doing Frosthaven, Gloomhaven Digital, normal Gloomhaven, and also some Jaws of the Lion content coming soon. So hit the notification bell if you'd like to keep up to date with that, but I do really appreciate the support. And of course, you can always swing by the Twitch stream at twitch.tv/ManageRequest every Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, where I'm hanging out playing Gloomhaven Digital. So you can always come and ask me any questions you'd like about Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, or anything else you might have there. Okay, so all that's left for me to say then is thank you all so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.
I think still, yeah.
Oh,
Scout
that's the blessing from Cam.
Yeah.
That's the blessing
So,
from.
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?